a critical sector to improving our economic competitiveness, we are growing the stock and quality of our road, rail, air, and water transport infrastructure. Through the Sukuk-funded road projects, a total of 412 kilometers of the targeted 643 kilometers road projects have been completed, representing 64%. The Prudential Infrastructure Development Fund projects are also progressing very well. On the second Niger Bridge, piling work has been completed and the approach roads are being constructed. 48% of work on this bridge has been achieved. We have constructed 102 kilometers of 376 kilometer Abuja-Kaduna-Kano road, representing 38%, and the 42.9 kilometer Obajana-Kabba road is 87.03% complete. Furthermore, the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency has completed routine maintenance on over 4,000 kilometers of federal roads out of the 5,000 kilometers targeted. We are extending and upgrading our railway network too. We are introducing more locomotives, coaches, and wagons for the Abuja-Kaduna rail line. The Central Ajakuta-Itape Wari line has been completed and is being extended from Itape to Abuja on one end and from Wari town to Wari port on the other. The Lagos-Ibadan rail line is 90% completed and will be extended to the Lagos port, which would help address the long-standing gridlock at the Apapa port. The Kano-Maradi single-track standard gauge railway, Coastal Railway Project, and Port Harcourt Maiduguri Standard Gauge Railway, with its associated branch lines running through the southeastern and Gombe States Industrial Park and Bonny Deep Seaport, are all ready for concessioning. Government continues to make investments in the aviation sector to position it as a travel and trade hub in West Africa and the wider African continent. Airport terminals in Abuja, Lagos, Kano, and Port Harcourt are being expanded, while the rehabilitation of the Enugu Airport is almost completed. All our airports are being raised to international standards with the provision of necessary equipment, especially navigational aids, to guarantee world-class safety standards. For the first time in over 10 years, Nigeria is conducting bidding process for 57 marginal oil fields to increase revenue and increase the participation of Nigerian companies in oil and exploration and production business. We continue to grow local content in other areas of the oil and gas sector with the disbursement of funds from the $200 million United States dollars Nigerian Content Intervention Fund to indigenous manufacturers and service providers. With sustained engagement of youth, opinion leaders, and other stakeholders, we have restored peace in the Niger Delta region and maintained our oil production levels. The head office of the Niger Delta Development Commission will be commissioned shortly. The funding of Section 1 to 4 of the East-West Road shall be pursued with a view to completing the project by the end of 2021. Furthermore, I am determined to ensure that development meant for the people of the Niger Delta get to them, so I have authorized a forensic audit of the Niger Delta Development Commission. Digital economy continues to play an important role in our development agenda as we move into the age of artificial intelligence. Since the creation of the Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy, the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy has been launched. Steps have been taken to achieve a reduction of connectivity cluster gaps from 207 to 114, as well as increase the level of 4G coverage by 30%. Nigeria remains committed to expanding access to quality education to enhance the productivity of its citizens, and will continue to pursue the enforcement of free and compulsory basic education for the first 9 years of schooling. In pursuit of this, we have launched the Better Education Service Delivery for all in 17 states, established additional 6 federal science and technical colleges, and currently executing a proactive teacher training plan with all states of the Federation. In our revision of the operations of specialized education funds and to implement reforms that will optimize their benefits to the sector, we have adopted a public-private sector partnership for provision of infrastructure and also collaborate with the private sector to create jobs. Our pursuit of affordable housing for the low and middle income earners has received a boost with the delivery of 1,200 housing units, provision of 520 service plots with infrastructure through a public-private sector partnership, and the issuance of 868 mortgages totaling 7.7 billion naira. Similarly, home renovation loans totaling 16.2 billion naira have been granted to 19,210 people. To enable sustainable access to safe and sufficient water to meet the social, cultural, environmental, and economic development needs of all Nigerians, we continue to expand our water supply, irrigation, and dam facilities. The completion of Amozari, Amla, Otupo, and other 42 earth dams with combined job creation of about 43,354 direct jobs and 71,172 indirect jobs would provide more support for irrigation, agriculture, and water supply. To further institutionalize our effort in this regard, I sign the Executive Order 009 on ending open defecation in Nigeria. In order to improve our forest cover and in fulfillment of our commitment at the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly in 2019, we have commenced the planting of 25 million trees. This initiative will also contribute to our effort to mitigate the effect of climate change. In the area of security, we remain unshaken in our resolve to protect our national infrastructure, including onshore and offshore oil installations, secure our territorial waters, and end piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. Ending insurgency, banditry, and other forms of criminality across the nation is being accorded appropriate priorities and the men and women of the armed forces of Nigeria have considerably downgraded such threats across all geopolitical zones. All the local governments that were taken over by Boko Haram insurgents in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa have long been recovered and are now occupied by indigents of these areas who were hitherto forced to seek a living in areas far from their ancestral homes. The total collapse of the economies of these areas, which constituted a federation, resuscitated the national public security communication system and commenced the implementation of the community policing strategy. Government has similarly established a Nigerian Police Trust Fund as a public-private sector vehicle for alternative sources of funding security activities. To reduce security challenges through our external borders, especially smuggling of oil products out of the country, inflow of small arms and drugs into the country, and equally protect our local manufacturers, we introduce exercise swift response, closing our borders from August 20th, 2019, and have considerably succeeded in meeting its objectives as well as improving our national revenue. Our government has continued to work to reduce social economic inequality through targeted social investment programs, education, technology, and improved information. Our social investment program has continued to be a model to other nations and has engaged 549,500 N-Power beneficiaries, 408,682 beneficiaries of the Conditional Cash Transfer Program, and 2,238,334 beneficiaries of the Growth Enhancement and Empowerment Program. This is being done in collaboration with the states. Similarly, market money and trader money programs have provided affordable loans to small and micro-scale enterprises to grow their businesses. Under the National Homegrown School Feeding Program, over 9,963,729 children are being fed to keep them in school and improve their nutritional status. Fellow Nigerians, the year 2020 has been like none other. In January 2020, the COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic by the World Health Organization. The number of global infections have risen from less than 8,000 shared between China and 18 other countries to over 7 million spread over 216 countries and on all continents. Nigeria recorded its first case of COVID-19 on February 27, 2020, and within the first 100 days, I have had cause to address the nation on 3 occasions within 1 month, which underscores the gravity of this pandemic. There is no doubt that this pandemic has affected the global economy and all known socio-economic systems. It has also brought grief and pain to families that have lost their loved ones. Like many Nigerians, I feel the grief and pain, not only as your president, but also as someone who has lost a close member of my staff and some relatives and friends. In order to have a robust national response, I approved a presidential task force on COVID-19 to provide guidance and leadership in tackling the pandemic nationwide. State governments also constituted their own COVID-19 task forces. Complementing this was the establishment of a National Emergency Operations Center responsible for providing technical and professional guidance in the national response. The overall objective of the PTF COVID-19 is to ensure that the pandemic does not overwhelm our health systems while ensuring that we maintain an effective case management system to help in containing the spread of the virus. The impact of the pandemic has disrupted our economic system, and to ensure its functioning while still addressing the spread, the federal government put in place a number of various non-pharmaceutical measures to slow down the spread of the virus, in addition to a progressive reopening of the economy. As part of the strategy to create jobs in reducing the effect of COVID-19 on our youth, I directed the employment of 774,000 Nigerians. These youth will be engaged in special public works program aimed at cushioning the effects of economic downturn. Each of the 774 local government areas in the country will be allotted 1,000 slots. I am pleased to report that this program has commenced. I receive regular briefing from the PTF on COVID-19. I note that the national response relies on science, data, and experience in taking decisions. This informed my approval for the ease of lockdown phase to ensure a balance between lives and livelihoods. I am confident that the steps being taken by the PTF will result in flattening the COVID-19 curve. I therefore implore all Nigerians to abide by the approved guidelines and protocols. There is hope for us all if we take individual and collective responsibility. Government is determined to turn this COVID-19 challenge into a motivation to action by building a nationwide public health care system that will help us overcome the COVID-19 pandemic and prepare for any future outbreak. Already, we have begun to look inward, and I charge our inventors, researchers, and scientists to come up with solutions to cure COVID-19. Government has continued to implement accountability and transparent policies through the Open Government Partnership and the Transparency Portal on financial transactions. Similarly, we have strengthened auditing and accountability mechanisms so as to ensure that rules and regulations are followed strictly. Anti-corruption agencies have secured more than 1,400 convictions and also recovered funds in excess of 800 billion naira. These monies are being plowed into development and infrastructure projects. The public service of Nigeria remains the bedrock for the formulation and implementation of policies, programs, and projects in the country. This accounts for why it continues to evolve, especially as new socio-economic challenges emerge for government to address. I will continue to give all the necessary support for the ongoing reforms designed to return discipline, integrity, and patriotism as a hallmark of the public service. In the face of dwindling resources and rising costs of governance, I have authorized the white paper on the rationalization of government parastatals and agencies be reviewed for implementation. Our youth population remains a source of strength in achieving development objectives. In this regard, we would continue to concentrate in developing their skills, providing them with opportunities to express their entrepreneurial, research, and industrial capacities, as well as ample opportunity to take leadership positions in the service of the nation. The commitment of this administration to the well-being of people living with disabilities remains unwavering. Government recognizes their contributions to development. I have directed that all relevant government agencies pay special attention to the peculiarities of persons with disabilities in the formulation and implementation of their policies and programs, and where suitable, their employment. Nigerian women remain a particular treasure to this nation, and for this reason, this administration has continued to give them a place of pride in the affairs of our country. I salute your courage, enterprise, and resilience, as well as your contributions to national development. I wish to assure all our women of this administration's determination to fight gender-based violence through the instrumentality of the law and awareness creation. I am particularly upset at recent incidents of rape, especially of very young girls. The police are pursuing these cases with a view to bringing perpetrators of these heinous crimes to swift justice. Government continue to recognize and harness the power of the media for positive development. The reforms of the broadcast and advertising industries, including digital switch over and continuous engagement through town hall meetings, remain central to accurate and credible information dissemination. Our culture provides the basis for our existence as a people and a nation. In preserving iconic aspects of our national culture, this government has been pursuing the recovery of artifacts removed from Nigeria, promoting heritage sites and festivals, and working towards designating some of our heritage sites as UNESCO World Heritage Centers. Nigeria would always be governed by the rule of law, and I will do my utmost to uphold the Constitution and protect the lives and property of all Nigerians. Government has initiated a number of policies and programs designed to promote the legal rights of Nigerians, facilitate the institutionalization of a responsive legal system, provide support to all constituted bodies in implementing their mandates, and improve our custodial system of justice. The National Assembly has been an important partner in our quest to sustain our democracy and achieve our development objectives. I therefore greatly thank the leadership and members of the Senate and the House of Representatives for their invaluable support at all times. I would also like to convey our deep appreciation to members of the press for your doggedness in the struggle for attainment of democracy since the beginning of our nationhood. I must admit that the relationship between the media and successive governments has not always been perfect, but there is no denying the fact that you have been an effective watchdog for the society, especially in holding public offices to account. It is sad that in the cause of securing our democracy, some of your colleagues have had to pay a heavy price. We will continue to guarantee freedom of the press as we place high premium on responsible journalism that is devoid of hate speech, fake news, and other unethical professional conduct. Fellow Nigerians, as we celebrate this year's Democracy Day, let us remember that notwithstanding our aspirations, humanity and indeed democracy is under the threat of COVID-19. Nigeria has survived many crises before and came out stronger. I am confident that by God's grace, we shall overcome this one and emerge stronger and more purposeful. Thank you for listening, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
President Buhari addresses the nation in commemoration of 2020 Democracy Day.
I salute your courage, enterprise, and resilience, as well as your contributions to national development.
As Nigeria marks Democracy Day, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says citizens have greater responsibility of containing coronavirus.
Ourselves is to strengthen our individual and collective resolve to abide by the guidelines, to protect ourselves, our friends, our loved ones.
Coronavirus infections in Nigeria rise to more than 14,500 as NCDC confirms over 600 new cases.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we focus on June 12 and Democracy Day.
All right, you just listened to President Muhammadu Buhari's broadcast to the nation. That's a few minutes ago, which of course had as part of it the president's scorecard within the past few years. And the recognition of June 12 as Democracy Day today somehow resonates with the words of the English writer Alan Moore, that people shouldn't be afraid of their governments, rather governments should be afraid of their people, and that's unquote. Now, the president action, as I said earlier on, by recognizing today as Democracy Day, bears significant symbolism for many Nigerians and in very many ways.
Precisely, Claire, and that, of course, has demonstrated that sovereignty does reside with the people. Now, not only was June 12 declared as a new Democracy Day, that's a couple of years ago, the chief protagonist of that election, Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, more popularly referred to as MKO, was conferred posthumously with the nation's highest national honor of Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, while his running mate in that election received the Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, GCON.
Precisely, Kingsley. And now the history of June 12, 1993 presidential election in Nigeria, and of course the events that characterized it are well documented. But it suffices to say that the June 11, 1994 Ekpetedo Declaration was the catalyst of subsequent agitations and protests. We can't say for certain why Chief MKO Abiola chose Ekpetedo for his declaration, but students of history would know that the community does hold great historical significance for the Yoruba-speaking community of Nigeria. Now, it was home to Oba Kosoko of Lagos and his followers in the 19th century. Kingsley, you knew that?
Well, certainly. Now, Chief MKO Abiola was arrested, accused of treason, and detained following the Ekpetedo Declaration, as Claire just mentioned. Now, the content of his statement at Ekpetedo included a reaffirmation of his victory in the 1993 presidential election, as well as a threat to disobey laws while embarking on a program of civil disobedience. Unfortunately, Chief MKO died on the 7th of July 1998 after spending about 4 years behind bars.
Now, the annulment and suspension of the June 12, 1993 election and his death, which was said, of course, to have been in the mysterious circumstances, plunged the country into unprecedented political crisis. Now, excuse me, civil society groups, organizations, trade unions, including, of course, the NLC, NUPENG, remember, Franco Kori, Pengasin, NBA, NUJ, and of course, ASU. Now, ASU was led by the then Dr. Asisi Asobi, who is now a professor at the Nasarawa State University in Kefi, spearheaded agitations and protests, especially in the southern part of the country.
Well, the agitations sought the restoration of the people's mandate that was given on the 12th of June 1993. And that election was globally acknowledged as the most free and fair political contest in Nigeria. It was devoid of ethnicity and religious sentiments. Now, in his broadcast in June 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari acknowledged that election, and he said, "The fact that the outcome of the June 12, 1993 election was not upheld by the then military government does not detract from the democratic credentials of that process."
And indeed, June 12 has now formally vitiated May 29 as Nigeria's Democracy Day. But beyond the symbolism of the day, have Nigerians and indeed the political class embraced the ideals encapsulated in the outcome of June 12, 1993 presidential election? That's a very tough nut, and we intend to crack, nevertheless, on today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria. Hello and welcome. I am Claire Adilabo Abdurazak.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program. We're transmitting live, as always, from our network studios here in Abuja. In the meantime, let's join our colleague Abdul Malik Adio for the highlights of the morning news. Bayo Atebe, our newspaper reviewer, will join us briefly for an abridged version of newspaper review. Good morning, Abdul Malik.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Claire. It's good to have you join us on the Morning News. It is Democracy Day in Nigeria, and President Muhammadu Buhari, in a live broadcast to the nation, congratulates all Nigerians for their resilience and determination to ensure that Nigeria remains a shining example of democracy despite daunting challenges facing the nation. The president most especially says thank you to the nation's health and other essential service staff for their dedication towards containing the coronavirus pandemic, and described this as a testament of courage and resilience, the hallmark of people of a great nation.
We have recorded notable achievements in the course of implementing our 9 priority objectives. Government has continued to implement accountability and transparent policies through the Open Government Partnership and the Transparency Portal on financial transactions. Similarly, we have strengthened auditing and accountability mechanisms so as to ensure that rules and regulations are followed strictly. Anti-corruption agencies have secured more than 1,400 convictions and also recovered funds in excess of 800 billion naira. These monies are being plowed into development and infrastructure projects.
Now, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has advised Nigerians to observe Democracy Day in solemn manner, devoid of pomp and pageantry in view of the ravaging coronavirus pandemic. Chairman of the task force and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, at Thursday's briefing in Abuja, says citizens have greater responsibility of containing the pandemic by adhering to adversaries.
The impression we would bequeath ourselves is to strengthen our individual and collective resolve to abide by the guidelines, to protect ourselves, our friends, our loved ones, and the country at large.
The Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 681 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria, taking the total number of confirmed cases to 14,554, 345 in Lagos, 51 in Rivers, 48 in Ogun, 47 in Gombe, 36 in Oyo, 31 in Imo, 28 in Delta, 23 in Kano, and 18 in Bauchi. Edo and Katsina State have 12 each, Kaduna has 9, Anambra 7, Jigawa 5, Kebbi and Ondo have 4 new cases, while Nasarawa State has 1. In total, there are now 9,673 active cases, with 4,494 patients discharged and 387 deaths recorded so far. And that's the news highlight. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Claire after this break.
The truth of the matter is that you do not have 2 sunrises in one day, even in Africa.
But the good thing is for us to forgive and forget.
History will take care of everything.
My name is Baba Kingibe.
On behalf of the federal government, I tender the nation's apology to the family of late MKO Abiola.
The main way coronavirus spread is when infected people sneeze and cough. Small droplets of fluid expelled by cough or sneezes are laced with viruses looking for new respiratory tracts to infect. When a sick person sneezes around someone who is healthy, the virus can land in the nose, mouth, or even the eyes, causing an infection. Symptoms can include fever, cough, shortness of breath, Symptoms may appear within 2 to 14 days. Seek medical advice if you develop symptoms and have been in close contact with a person known to have COVID-19, or if you live or have recently been in an area with ongoing spread of COVID-19. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. In this time of despair, our country, Nigeria, needs us now more than ever. We stand a chance to save our great country, Nigeria. A chance to rise up from this pandemic stronger and better. What will be the gain if we do not learn from other countries and observe the lockdown to stop the further spread of the virus? If we loosen our guards and allow this virus doom our very existence, then what have we gained? This is the call to every Nigerian to unite as one and stop the spread of this deadly virus. Stay at home and stay safe. Remember, the virus doesn't move unless we move. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network. We have observed the lockdown. We have practiced the measures in order to curb the spread of the virus, but we can do better. The coronavirus spread is increasing daily, and only together can we cut down the numbers and defeat the spread of the virus. Remember, COVID-19 is not a death sentence, and a recovered patient cannot spread the disease. Do not stigmatize. Do not hesitate to report any case, or if you have come in contact with anybody that has been infected with COVID-19. If you have cough and fever, please stay at home and call your state hotline. Find state numbers at www.covid19.ncdc.gov.ng. Remember, it is for your own good and for the good of every Nigerian. Let us do better and defeat the virus. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Do you not know that our enemies have no face? They are indigents of no state. They come from no place. And if this boat capsizes, every one of us will go under. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer. Do not say, I am the Iroko when the forest is burning. Do not say, I am the Obeche when the forest is burning. Our differences will not stop us from perishing together. So when the drums sound, let everybody answer.
Right, this is Good Morning Nigeria and the Network Service. Coming up next is Newspaper Review. Don't go away.
Newspaper reviewer Bayo Atoyebe is here with us in the studios. Bayo, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Claire.
Good morning, Bayo. Welcome
Nigeria.
to Abridged Newspaper Review. Just have 5 minutes. So let me quickly take The Punch, which is the only paper we have this morning. And quite a number of stories on the front page. But that's dominating the paper this morning is on the peaceful protest against rape and violence against women. And it was held, the pictures you see there, pictures of members of the International Federation of Women Lawyers and the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Plateau Council. And of course, we had an all-male awareness walk also against rape in Lagos. And all of these took place yesterday, Thursday, different parts of the country. So Protest work against rape. You see there, report and shame the rapist. So, now let's look at the trending major headlines. PTF meets governors, security agencies as COVID-19 cases surge. Can we see the headline now? Okay, so it comes with 3 riders record over 680 new infections nationwide as total cases reach more than 14,000. Majority of Nigerians at risk of contracting coronavirus, that's coming from the FG, and Gombe recorded over 300 mysterious deaths, declares Commissioner. Let's look at the trending stories just beneath the picture story. Autumn 8 quizzed over alleged 42 million naira scan. Details of that on page 9. The stories are trending just beneath the picture story. And June 12, Afenifere, Tinubu, Atiku, others hail Abiola, Lagos hosts youths. Details of that on page 8. Now, another Katsina community protest against banditry and blocks highway. It's on page 7. Now, Kogi gave 65 unclaimed corpses, mass burial, page 36. Teacher murdered, state declares curfew in southern Kaduna communities, page 36. And lawmakers exchange blows as Kaduna Assembly impeaches Deputy Speaker. It's on page 42. And finally, let me take you above the nameplate. Nameplate, Wadume, slain policeman's family, 6 damages, killer soldiers prosecution, page 9. 32 parties plan appeal as court affirms deregistration is on page 36, and Lawan Gbadabiamila plan to meet Buhari over insecurity. Bayo, quickly.
Yes, let's start with the COVID-19. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force expressed concern about the rising number of COVID-19. Incidentally, he was lamenting about the cases of Tuesday, only for yesterday to beat that other record. We had 681. Which shows that we are still on the ascendancy. However, he asserted that there will not be a reintroduction of the lockdown. However, we all need to take more responsibility. On the issue of numbers, the DG for the Nigeria Center for Disease Control says that the rumor that it's just numbers that are being bandied around is not true, that the numbers are not just numbers. They are human beings that are suffering, and so many of them are dying. And therefore, he says that we need to take it very seriously. He points out that states are not testing enough. We have capacity to test up to 10,000, but up to now, we are testing around 2,000, and that is what is responsible for that. What would interest you is about Kogi State has now announced that there are 65 unclaimed corpses are to be given mass burial. The causes of the death were not indicated, but the Commissioner for Environment, Victor Omofaye, says that this is because the relatives did not come and claim them. They are being buried to create room for the mortuary and the Federal Medical Center. Kaduna State, there is curfew. There's a clash between the Atiab and Chawai. This is as a result of a teacher who was found dead, but security agents are there to maintain law and order. We now have the president of the Court of Appeal has now been confirmed. The Senate did that yesterday, and also the economic sustainable plan has been presented to President. It is indicated that if it is pursued consensuously, we'll be able to pull out of our gross domestic product that is likely to drop between -4.4 to -8.9.
Well, yeah, Bayo, that's the last point you just raised with regard to the report submitted by the Vice President on the economic sustainability plan. The numbers are also worrisome, and those numbers should indeed be a call to action for both the public and private sectors, that by the end of the year, we're likely to have some 39.4 million Nigerians out of job on account of COVID-19. In a place like the U.S., for instance, over 44 million persons are already out of job. So how do you prevent those numbers, in our own case, over 39 million, from being jobless? What exactly? Reality, yes, exactly what is required to be done. It isn't a business of the federal government alone. All the other tiers of government are involved, and they also should take a cue from what is contained in that report. Happily, we are seeing growth in the non-oil sector, the economy, and agriculture, of course, is prevalent now. So what is it that those other persons can do in terms of finding jobs for themselves, rather than just sitting on their hands, and waiting for palliatives from government?
And that's perhaps why the Vice President emphasized that if it is implemented consensuously, we're likely to have a very low dip.
I'm sorry, I have to cut short here. We said it was an abridged newspaper review. I'm sorry, Bayo.
It's okay.
But it's a weekend.
Pressure of time.
Do stay safe and continue to stay safe for us. So we'll see you next week by the grace of God. This is Good Morning Nigeria. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person, who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
Now believe this corrupting. You know if you touch black man, if you like, gather the whole Niger, come together, make a cough. Nothing.
Which one you want?
Give me V&D.
I beg, get small pieces.
How much you want to give him?
Give me 200. Take your change now.
You know what your change is?
My people, this coronavirus, na serious matter. May una wash una hands regularly. Come use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. If you no see water, wash your hand. Make una sit down for house. You see this virus, so it no get leg. Now we dey waka kurukere. No waka around, make the virus for die. No forget, say, the betterment of our people. Now for your handy day.
This message is from the Akinfade Foundation in partnership with the National Orientation Agency with support from MacArthur Foundation.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
All right, welcome back. If you've just tuned in, this is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, Africa's largest TV network, and especially our special edition on this June 12th day, which is our Democracy Day. Our conversation this morning, of course, borders on June 12th, and to set the tone for our conversation, let's join Victor Azu for this background report.
June 12, 1993 has become an unforgettable date in the political history of Nigeria. It was the day an election acclaimed by both local and international observers as the freest and fairest election in the country's democratic history was conducted. In the two-party system, Chief Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola was the flag bearer of the Social Democratic Party SDP, while Ambassador Babagana Kingibe was his running mate. On the other hand, Alhaji Bashir Tofa was presidential candidate of the National Republican Convention, NRC, with Sylvester Ugo as running mate. Millions of Nigerians trooped out irrespective of tribe or religion to vote a man they believed represented hope for a new Nigeria.
Nigeria on the march again. On the march again. Looking for Mr. President. On the march again. MKO is our man.
The defunct National Electoral Commission, led by Professor Humphrey Nwosu, began announcing election results on 14th June. And of the 6.6 million votes already announced, Abiola had received 4.3 million, winning in 19 states out of 30, including the FCT and Kano, Tofa's home state, leaving the NRC candidate with just 2.3 million votes. Apparently seeing the handwriting on the wall, Bashir Tofa reportedly sent a congratulatory message to Chief MKO Abiola. It was also reported that prices of commodities dropped. On 15th June, a court injunction halted the counting and verification of votes. This time, the NEC obeyed the injunction, having refused a pre-election order and announced via Radio Nigeria on 16th June that it was suspending announcement of the results, citing the court order. The final vote was leaked on 18th June by democracy activists, revealing Abiola won by a 58% majority. On 24th June, the then military government led by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida announced the annulment of the election, citing the issue of vote buying as well as the need to protect the country's judiciary. The cancellation sparked a nationwide protest which led to loss of lives, while many Nigerians sustained injuries.
Nigerians are ready for democracy. Nigeria have elected their president, and Nigerians are not prepared to go for another election. The truth of the matter is that you do not have two sunrises in one day. Even in Africa, the sun rises only once a day, and that is the way it is. The people have made it very clear that that is what they want. And I'm sure the purpose is to let government know that the people are very serious in what they are saying.
The agitation for the recognition of the people's mandate continued until Chief Abiola was arrested and detained in 1994 on charges of treason after declaring himself president of Nigeria. MKO Abiola died on 7th July 1998, the day he was due to be released from prison. Even after his death, activists continue to call for him to be recognized as president and compensation paid to his family. A call which was finally heeded 25 years later. On 6th June 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari declared June 12 Nigeria's New Democracy Day and a national public holiday effective 2019. The president also awarded the late Abiola the highest honor in the land, Grand Commander of the Federal Republic, GCFR, and named the Abuja National Stadium after him. In the same vein, late Abiola's running mate, Babagana Kingibe, was awarded the honor of Grand Commander of the Niger, GCON. This decision has been largely applauded across the country. However, as the nation commemorates the second anniversary of the New Democracy Day, some Nigerians are still calling for the late philanthropist's entitlements to be paid to his family, while that of Kingibe should be paid to him. Will this call also be heeded? Only time will tell.
Many thanks, Victor Azu, for that elaborate background. With us in the studios, we would like to welcome our guests to discuss the significance of June 12 as Democracy Day. Let's welcome a big player at that event 27 years ago, Senator Jonathan Zwingina. He was Director General of Hope 93, which was the campaign organization of Chief MKO Abiola and Babagana Kingibe. Senator Zungina, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome Malam Garba Shehu, a Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Malam Garba Shehu, of course, is no spring chicken. At June 12 election, he was an editor of a paper in Kano. Malam Garba, pleasure to have you with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
And thank you. Happy anniversary.
All right.
Okay, we also have with us here in the studio, I'm sure also a very big player in the June 12 struggle, the DG, Director General of Voice of Nigeria, VON, Dr. Osita Okechukwu. Dr. Osita. All right, sir. Then the next person I will be glad to introduce is Rinsola Abiola, who is, of course, the late MKO Abiola's daughter. She joins us right here in the studio. Hello, Rinsola. Good to see you.
Happy Democracy Day.
All right. Thank you very much once again to our guests for being with us. 27 years ago, we had this historic event of Nigerians going out to cast their votes in the presidential election, which was intended to be the last in the series of elections for us to finally transit from military rule to full-blown civilian democracy on the 27th of August 1993. But everything went kaput, as Nigerians would say. So, lessons and perspectives from June 12, and now we're celebrating 21 years of democracy, plus a major step taken by President Muhammadu Buhari 2 years ago to say, no, our Democracy Day isn't the 29th of May, but it should now be June 12. Senator Jonathan Zungina, give us your sense of what this means to us now as a people and in historical perspective.
Well, thank you very much for this program. I'd like to say that there was nothing that pleased or assuaged all those who took part in that campaign than the final acknowledgement that first there was an election, second it was valid, thirdly it was wrong to have annulled it, and capped it with an apology. The apology surprised me even more because I really didn't expect it, but that showed, in my view, the statesman-like character of our president, and we were all pleased for that. I will say that, well, mistakes can be made, errors can be made, in fact, deliberate ones can be made, but along the way, God will always produce leaders that will be able to correct those. I think it was a correction of a major historical error that the president had made, and that is why all of us who had opportunity to be invited all came around and witnessed the event that the president declared. I would also want to say that we should learn a few lessons from what happened in June 12. Firstly, nobody should arrogate to himself a decision that cancels the will of the people. You cannot pull Nigerians to an election which was free and fair and then try to annul that election, override that election. It may stand for a while, but the forces of history will always check that. And I think, secondly, this arbitrariness in power or by people of power, some people of power, is something that we should learn to put behind us and allow the will of the people to prevail at all times. And I would also like to say that the recognition given Chief MKO Abiola was a wonderful thing. Although I would say as a Director General that we appreciate that recognition. We are very, very delighted that that historical error had been corrected. But we feel that it can also be completed.
Okay.
And the completion of the process is what we are hoping.
That's an Oliver Twistian.
All right, let me ask the distinguished senator. Let me stay with you and ask you, as the DG, for that campaign organization. Then, aside COVID-19 pandemic today, how would you have celebrated today?
I would have lined up school children to march past in Eagle Square and the president take a salute with all the forces and the rest. The way we were celebrating Democracy Day, Independence Day, when we were young, people will line up, the armed forces will line up informations, school children will follow. These are not images that children forget. Even adults don't forget them. That's what I would have done. Pull out everybody. There will be no COVID-19, as you said. So the issue of social spacing will not disturb us. We will line up and march past, and speeches will be made. And after that, there will be some small cocktail in the night.
So what mode would you now activate now that we have COVID-19? Are you going to be on the safe mode? Are you going to be on free mode? What mode of celebration are you kicking in today?
Well, I will suggest that in line with the COVID-19 guidelines, people should celebrate it at home. People, wherever you are, cook whatever you can, have some drink and whatever, as in line with the guidelines, so that there will be no partying, no people gathering, yes. But we cannot forget the significance of the day. So do it at home.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator Swingina. Let's bring in Mr. Osita Okechukwu, Director General of the Voice of Nigeria. One of the cartoons of that period of 1993, which remains unforgettable to me, a cartoonist had a calendar of the month of June, 1993. And of all the days, there are 30 days in the month of June, the June 12 was missing. In other words, you listed all the days of the month, there's 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, down to 30. But today, we can say June 12 is back. In your opinion, what does this say about us and about our politics?
Now, let me start by saying that by Mr. President's pronunciation 2 years ago, it shows that Mr. President is a historic person. It shows as well that he appreciates that the will of the people is at the bedrock of democracy. And as you said, what are we talking about? We're not only talking about Abiola, we're talking about the soul of Nigerians, the humanity that we are one. Because the election demonstrated that Nigerians are one. Abiola won in Kano, where Tofa came from. I remember in one of those campaigns in Aba, there was an old woman, a market trader that jumped up where she was selling tomato and wanted to greet Abiola. And she was being blocked. MKO stepped down from the car and went and hung the lady. All the security people were trying to block him from getting to the lady. He still moved because he was also a man of the people. And as you said, what do we say? It's like what Mr. President is doing today now with the program called the Uncle Boran's program. I could see that program trying to do that kind of ignition. Because we covered the Rice Producers Association, and I saw an amalgam of everybody. I asked them, how did the people make up this coalition of Nigerians? We'll come to that later. So it is always good to remember that we are one humanity.
All right, thank you, Mr. Osita Okechukwu. I called you Doctor earlier on. I'm sure it's coming on the way.
I didn't pass the exam.
All right.
No problem. You have it honoris causa.
Let me throw the ball there to the Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity, Malam Garba Shehu. The President just spoke a few minutes ago, about over 40 minutes. That's probably one of the longest I've seen, the President do. With the declaration of today as Democracy Day was widely applauded as a masterstroke. Can you situate for us the President's broadcast early this morning, within a Democracy Day celebration context?
Well, as you said correctly, I think this is the longest of the speeches that the President has delivered. Even the UN speeches were not as long. And 96 paragraphs, all 40 minutes with some additions. And also, what did he try to make of it? I think that the President evaluated the health of the country's democracy And at the end of it, his conclusion is that this country's democracy is healthy, well, and alive. And he did his duty of accountability to the people. As a messenger sent by the people to go and serve them. Servant leader, as one head of state said. He rendered account on all spheres. And he did a number of things that were quite extraordinary. On 2 counts, the president literally apologized to Nigerians. One on the issue of the recent killings in Borno and Katsina. And on the lockdown situation, the difficulties that it has caused, clearly saying that it could not have been done in a different way. And I think that if the newspapers and the media in the country are also listening, the president had extended an olive branch. There was a full recognition of the media role in the history of this country, of the constructive roles they have played in the country in upholding democracy, seeing us to this day, 21 years of unbroken, 21 years since the annulment of that election, June 12. So I think that for somebody who had largely been seen to have been aloof towards the media, President today was all over the place embracing, the media in the country. Beyond this, looking at the economy, the efforts that he's making to restructure, he dwelled so much on agriculture, the significant role as the bedrock, all of the infrastructure projects that are going on, giving exact percentage points as to the levels at which major infrastructure projects are standing. So I think by and large the president had done justice to the airtime that he had taken. He had rendered service to Nigerians on Democracy Day. And that is the full meaning of this day.
All right, Malam Gabashe, we'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's now bring in Rinshola Abiola, one of the daughters of Chief MKO. Rinshola, before June 12, 1993, Chief MKO Abiola was already a man of the people, one of the most prominent philanthropists on the African continent. And indeed, he was probably, if not the wealthiest, but amongst the wealthiest on the African continent. But with June 12, it would appear that the Abiola family lost directly the right to call Abiola solely their own, as Abiola then became, as it were, a national property. And that has now been consecrated with what happened 2 years ago. So, in the context of June 12, what does this now mean to your family, and what message would you have for Nigerians?
Daddy stopped being just for the family before June 12, 1993 elections. He had always been about the people, about the upliftment of the masses, about standing for what he believed in, about helping people in every way that he could. So I think it's something that, that selflessness is something I think the family has always been aware of and had found ways to become accustomed to. For me, it is a great honor to have been born of a man who stood so strongly in his convictions that he laid down his life for it. There aren't many people like that through history. We've had a couple, but it takes a lot of willpower, it takes a lot of conviction, it takes a lot of courage to do what he did, to let go of everything and put his country first, despite literally having anything he wanted or could possibly want at his fingertips. But he decided that it wasn't just about him. Nigerians were equally important. The emancipation of Nigerians was something he was willing to fight for. He could have sat back and enjoyed his comfort. He could have found a refuge in any country in the world, but he chose not to do that. He chose instead to stand and to fight, to reclaim his mandate, and to emancipate Nigerians, to break the shackle of oppression, and he claimed his life. So it's a very painful thing to lose a parent. It's very painful, especially when you lose them in the kind of circumstances that my father passed away in. But at the same time, you know that he did something, and generations to come will always remember him for the great sacrifice that he made. Are you consoled by the actions of Mr. President? You know, recognition recognitions in two ways: declaration of a national public holiday on a day like this, and then, of course, the national conferment of the national awards, honor awards. Are you consoled by those actions?
It's like it's been 27 years since June 12. 21 since we returned to democracy, and it speaks really well of the current administration of His Excellency the President Muhammadu Buhari. It says that the labor of our heroes past will not be in vain. That's a line from our national anthem, and the recognition of June 12 and the recognition of my late father is something that speaks to that line, actually holding meaning, actually holding weight, actually being a promise from the Nigerian state to her people. So it shows that the president is a man of his word. It shows that he's a man of justice. It shows that he's somebody who knows the right thing to do. We've had lots of presidents before him since we returned to 99, and none of them thought it imperative to correct that part of our history. In fact, it seems like some were trying to erase the contributions that my father made. And for him to come in and decide that he was going to do the right thing is something that I believe should be commended. He's a man of honor, and I'm thankful for it. I'm sure everybody else in the family is, and I'm sure that everybody who understands how hard fought our democracy was and who believes in justice is something will always commend him for making that decision.
All right. Thank you very much, Rinshola. We'll return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's come back to our studios here. Senator Jonathan Zwingina, you were in charge of the control room of Hope 93. And one of the key features of Abiola's victory, which was denied, was that it was a pan-Nigeria victory. It was an election that, as it were, subverted the usual fault lines that are prominent in our politics. Tell us something, with the basis of your experience, what went right with the campaign that North, South, East, and West Nigerians voted and said it's MKO and Kingibe we wanted to be at the presidential villa?
Well, thank you. Lots of things came into play. Much of the gains of June 12 were actually not constructed on the day of June 12. They had been at play for quite some time. Chief MKO Abiola himself had always been a man of the people and had reached out to virtually all parts of the country and would contribute to school, to hospital construction, would contribute to church, building of mosques, building of churches, in all parts of the country. So that foundation had already been laid. Now, the campaign itself was modeled on a pattern that brought in key leaders from the various parts of the country. And what we did at that time, and I see that it's not been repeated by other campaigns, was to swap the campaign leaders. If we put a Southwest zonal campaign structure, we would normally put a Northwest leader. And so with that, we were able to mix the leadership and we went round. And I would say that Chief MKO Abiola went to absolutely every state. Despite the rigors of that time, he visited everywhere during the primaries and then during the election itself. And that is why throughout that election, the victory itself reflected the hard work of the candidate, the history of the candidate, as well as the election itself. And we won in 28. We had 2/3 of the votes in 28 out of 30 states, the highest victory ever in a presidential election for a candidate. And in Kano, for instance, we defeated Tofa, who was from Kano State. And that was something to remember very well. And I would say that the campaign organization itself drew in not only the political elite in the SDP, but also the media, the students, everywhere. And at the level of the economy, when we said farewell to poverty, it was a language that appealed to everybody. And the content of farewell to poverty, which was our economic policy, appealed directly and even went international by talking about a program of compensation for the years of slavery that Africans had endured. So it was a comprehensive campaign. And I would say that up till that time, there was a recognition of a certain sense of sincerity in the government to do the right thing. And so people were so sure that this election would produce results that will, in fact, nobody ever contemplated annulment. Nobody. And the freedom INEC had to conduct the election, the issue of annulment shocked us because in the constitution developed by that government, it said that no one can stop an election. And there were previous attempts by courts to stop elections that were denied. So that particular one coming from ABN obviously was arranged, and we were surprised that a court ruling could stand against a constitutional clause. But you can see, thank God Nigerians have discovered what it is, and that correction had been made.
All right. Senator Zwingina was talking about ABN. That ABN stood for Association for Better Nigeria.
Yes,
and we saw the betterment that came out of that. All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. We're taking a short break, and when we return, we'll continue with our guests.
Nigerians, coronavirus is dangerous. It can kill. When you see this sign, high fever, cough, shortness of breath, drowsiness, pneumonia, don't panic, don't hide, don't embark in self-medication. Promptly visit the nearest medical facility. Report all cases to the nearest hospital. Prevention is key. Avoid contact with infected persons. Avoid crowded areas as